Hey everybody, Josh here. How you doing on this weekend of the referendum? I just want to give some final thoughts on the referendum and the stuff that happened around the red over black video. Sorry if I cough. I've got a bit of a cold at the moment. Here's the thing, right? If the referendum was split into two questions, do you agree to recognize indigenous cultures in the Constitution for question one, and do you accept or agree to establishing a voice body of 24 unelected representatives to advise government on policy? I would have voted yes for the first question and no for the second. This was never, at least for me, and I think for most people who voted no, this was never about being withholding towards Aboriginal people. My perspective, there are other people who may have different views, but my perspective was that the marketing was reconciliation and acceptance, but the detail was a Marxist totalitarian unionization of the Aboriginal people to hold the government to ransom. I didn't, right from the start, I had major problems with the idea of the voice because of the language of the Uluru Statement, because of the variety or lack thereof of worldview in the Uluru Statement. It didn't include language that would accept Christian Aboriginals in the Uluru Statement. Therefore, by implication, the voice would only be representing Marxist or, let's say, mystical Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders as indigenous. As far as I can tell, this was all Marxist critical theory, anti-racist theory that you could read in something like Ibram X. Kendi's book, Anti-Racism, or the other global conversation about truth-telling and indigenous people and welcome to country. All these things, they're not native, pardon the pun, to Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders. You can go to Canada and hear an Indigenous person there talk about stuff and they use the same vocabulary, the same phrases, even though it's a completely different culture. You can go to India, hear the same rhetoric. You can go to South Africa, hear the same rhetoric. It's completely misleading and dishonest. And one thing that I think has been an overwhelming success in this campaign is a lot more people are aware now. Excuse me. A lot more people, I think, are aware now of cultural Marxism in a real way, and how they use language very deceptively to try and weasel their way into things by fooling people with sort of a marketing campaign. Julia Gillard was really good at doing this, that she would present something with one hand, but you always had to watch her non-show hand like a magician, because she was always doing something with the other hand. And that's basically what it is. It's like the dialectic is where you marry some element of truth with a deception, a lie. That's a praxis. In Marxist praxis, that's effectively how it works, even though the theory of dialectics are a little bit different. And so people like Mayo, who came out as a Marxist, you just need to read what these people have written and investigate where they went to school and the academics and the fact checkers and what the media say about the thing. Like, it's just completely obvious if you know and understand how cultural Marxism works. They're not very innovative in their method. They're not very innovative in their application. They can be quite innovative in thinking up new ways and new areas to establish like a front to fight on. the thing that needs to happen is a royal commission into the money that's been spent funding these activists. They don't spend the money to go and put it into the communities. They spend the money on paying wages and consultants and other things to go and have national conferences and all this other stuff and come up with a bullshit declaration and that doesn't take into account the actual people that they say they're representing. Point of fact, or case in point, I should say, is the large population of Christian indigenous people. If you read the Uluru Statement, there's no language in there that they can hang their hat on and say that's us. It's just fabrication, a fantasy, a fiction, what a postmodernist would call like a simulacrum, a simulation of reality. You say it so often that people kept disconnected from the reality that they think that the pseudo-reality is the actual reality, and it's not. Anyway, let's jump into Red Over Black. So Red Over Black, the documentary that I found and posted, got over 10,000 views. It got shared a bunch of times. It was re-syndicated by lots of people. Kaz Roz, a Marxist independent fact checker, put it in a report about right-wing extremists and Nazis and all those things, even though she doesn't. What's the definition of a Nazi? How can you tell someone's a Nazi? Is it just because of certain views that they have? It's like, it's a floating definition. You apply it when you want to malign someone, or you want to categorize somebody. So anyway, she wrote a report, and the ABC reporters picked up on that report and wrote an article about it. And then my video on my channel was slapped with a restriction for really no reason at all. Claimed that there was sexual content or nudity in there, and there wasn't. I mean, it wasn't banned, it wasn't taken down, it was just restricted, and it killed the momentum that had been started by the stupid ABC friggin' article. Anyway, that documentary was substantiated by evidence that no one bothered to read, and the article, is more about demonizing certain people that are using the documentary, but at the same time, the documentary still stands, and it's valid, and it was relevant to the voice in a big way. Because Marxism isn't some club somewhere that you pay a due and get a card and you're a member. Marxism is a worldview. And cultural Marxism is an academic, let's call it a cult, because it is. It's an academic cult. And the academics who know what they're doing, who are fully loaded into the dialectic and the Gramsci and Marcuse and all those crowd, their theories of power dynamics and how they apply, and even into like the 90s and the people who came up with queer theory and anti-colonialism, which has links to postmodernism. Anyway, it's a cult, and it is inbuilt into the national curriculum, which I did an expose on at the start of this year. This is bad because they don't tell you the truth. It's extremely deceptive and deceiving and couched in moral, good-sounding language, but its effects are devastating. It is not a unifying principle in any way, shape, or form. Marxism is... The dialectic works in conflict, only in conflict. So Marxists need to create conflict so the dialectic can progress. I mean, there's no peace in Marxism. There's no reconciliation in Marxism. So when you hear the Yes campaigners say, we're moving forward with reconciliation, what they really mean is they're moving forward with more activism to try and have a revolution in Australia where the colonialists are booted out in some effective way, and the re-establishment of like a proletariat-like indigenous government. Now, I'm sure if someone watches this, it'll be like, oh, that's such rubbish. And it's not. It's not rubbish. It's not misinformation. It's not disinformation. It's just an extrapolation of knowing cultural Marxism and looking at the rhetoric and the language and the goals and other things like that, and seeing what has happened in other countries in the world that have allowed Marxists to come in and negotiate their conflict with their indigenous people, which they stirred up in the first place, probably 20 years before. That documentary, Red Over Black, was important. And I'm so thankful for the people that shared it and how it got around. You know, once something gets out there, you don't have control over how it's used. And some people might have used it to further their own agenda. And that's a shame, because it was good on its own. It was relevant and useful on its own as a teaching tool, because of how old it is and who was saying it, and the fact that he had old school standards in justifying what he was saying through the book The Evidence. So now that that video has done its job, I'm going to take it down. And I was originally going to take all the material that wasn't mine down to monetize the channel. But because of the referendum, I decided to leave that one up. And I'm really glad that I did, because it did have an impact on getting people real information, real facts about how deep the Marxist plans for Australia go. And the language from Albanese, from Mayo, from the women that were involved in writing the Uluru Statement and other things like that, and the fact that everyone everywhere was being called racist, is documented in that video from 1984. I mean, the tactics, like I said, the tactics are not innovative. They do exactly the same thing. And anyone who took that documentary at face value and then looked at what was going on in the voice conversation could see it as clear as day. But yeah, I just want to let everybody know that the Australia's national curriculum is based on a model of teaching or pedagogy called critical pedagogy, which was thought up and invented by a South American called Paulo Freire. And it's basically designed to create activists through education, because Freire said all education is political. And he was a Marxist, and he synthesized his Marxism, posing it, you know, gutted all the Christian meaning out of words and things like that, and filled it with Marxist meaning. I mean, he has a book where he says basically that everybody has to go through an Easter-like event where they're reborn into this new woke. He didn't call it woke, but it's the proto-woke. He's the granddaddy of woke. Be born into this awareness of oppression. And that's what woke is. It's the awareness or the awakening to being able to see the way power dynamics work in the context of political identities, and interpreting those political identities through cultural Marxist categories. Cultural Marxism reifies, that means make something alive that's not alive, reifies people groups so that you lose the individual and you get to say whatever you want about the people group. So in other words, all indigenous people are summed up in this one voice. It's not real. It's not reality. All capitalists are bad. The bourgeois, excuse me, the bourgeois class and the underclass, the working class, in the old Marxist, classical Marxism, was a class consciousness. But this is a power dynamics, oppression consciousness, and it's a religion. It's a spirituality where history is given this mystical evaluative power over what people do, so that you might hear them say something like, we have to be on the right side of history. They mean something really specific, that history will judge their actions. When we use that phrase, because we've heard it so often, we don't mean the same thing. It means something big for them. And there are heaps of average, everyday people that are just misguided or misled, or they've been, indoctrinated by the cult. And they're not the theorists. They're not people that know what they're doing or know what's going on. And so, have a lot of patience for them. But the academics, they know exactly what they're doing, and they're just pure friggin' evil. The stuff that's going on in the world at the moment with, a certain country that's been invaded and stuff like that. I mean, there's anti-colonial elements at play there as well. And you see the rhetoric around the world. Marxism creates conflict because it believes, or the people that are Marxists believe, that conflict furthers the dialectic, which will ultimately bring you to a magical utopia that is peaceful and wonderful, and everyone will behave exactly how they should, and everything will work exactly how they should. That's never going to happen. Human beings are not... Oh. It's never going to happen. Even if every single person on the face of this planet is a Marxist, they'll still fight amongst each other. Any sort of utopian ideal is flawed because human nature is just not going to play ball. I have this idea that the cure for totalitarianism is itself totalitarianism. So in other words, if you read Brave New World or 1984, it's the horribleness of the totalitarianism that creates the environment for someone who wants freedom. If you read Lord of the Rings, you notice the most evil thing in Lord of the Rings is that ring. It's very powerful, it's very alluring, everybody wants it, but no one can handle it because it's just pure evil. And if you look at the end of the movie, Frodo doesn't destroy it. He said, no, I'm not going to destroy it. And he tries to put it on and take it away. But then Gollum comes in and bites it off his hand and steals it from him and slips into the lava, and the ring gets destroyed that way. Here's the point that I think Tolkien was trying to make. Evil, given enough time, will eventually destroy itself. It can't survive. Evil cannot survive. Because evil is about destruction. And there comes a time where you destroyed everything so much that you have to then destroy yourself. And it's the same with these utopian ideologies. They will destroy themselves. When they achieve some sort of goal, or they get closer to their own goal, it's their evil goal of controlling everything that actually makes it unwind. Yeah. So I'm going to take down the video. Thanks for everybody who watched it and shared it. I really encourage you to investigate more about cultural Marxism, specifically how it's being used in Australia. So Australia has a very influential population of third wave feminist Marxists. High academics that are very influential in policy, especially in Victoria. The university, New South Wales University, La Trobe, RMIT, not so much these days, but used to be. South Australia University, Queensland University, Melbourne University, Macquarie University, all these universities, pretty much all the universities in Australia, by decree of the UN, have to service the Sustainable Development Goals. But there are certain universities that are leading, especially the ones that were involved in the education curriculum. They're writing cultural Marxism into policy everywhere. And the thing about cultural Marxism is they don't give concessions. Marxism doesn't give concessions. They would just hold the line, and get you to make the concession in order to move forward. So if you listen to the acceptance speeches or the conceding speeches of Albanese and the other people from the Yes campaign, you'll see across the board, oh, we're so sad, but we're not going to stop. We're going to continue getting reconciliation or fighting for this or that or the other thing. They're not going to stop. They're just going to move to the next thing and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep going and keep going. The only way to stop them is to understand how they work and expose it at every possible instant. That's why I put red over black up there. That's why I do what I do. You need to expose them at every instant. You also need to resist them with everything you've got, because every day you don't resist, it gets worse. If you look at the Mao's Cultural Revolution, what happened in Russia in 1917, the time to resist, the time to stop them is now. Don't wait, because every day you wait, it gets closer and it gets harder. And if you think that you're going to avoid any negative attention, you're fooling yourself. There will come a time where you will have to cross something that you never thought you'd have to cross just to survive. Don't let it get that far. Start now. Resist woke. Resist Marxism and cultural Marxism. Expose their crap. Expose their lies. In order to do that, you need to know their vocabulary and their thinking and how they operate. I really encourage you all, if you want to do that, to get into James Lindsay's stuff. He's the best guy. Anyway, 25 minutes. Gosh, didn't expect to talk this long. Check out the Australian National Curriculum expose that I did on this channel. It's a bit long, goes for 2 hours, but it had to be that long because it was extensive and I did a lot of research. Get into it and say goodbye to Red Over Black because I'm taking it down. It's done its job. I'm not going to get rid of it because it's an important documentary, but if it's ever needed again, I'll bring it out again. So take care. Good luck. I'm glad we voted no. Keep your ears open and practice listening. You've got to let the Marxists hang themselves by over-talking. They'll tell you everything that they're going to do. They always just listen.